So I was interested in discussing perseverance of the saints with you.
Okay. What? Why are you giggling? Are you gonna troll me?
No, I'm just excited. But yeah, I was thinking about it a lot, and the Orthodox position is obviously anti-perseverance of the saints, from my understanding. But maybe are there any Orthodox people that take that belief?
No. Orthodox theology teaches that you can participate in grace and lose your salvation.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess what I struggle with that idea, and obviously I think that there's Christians that can fall away from the faith. I mean, the Bible is pretty explicit about that. But when we talk about like believers that have genuine faith, I guess some roadblocks that I have with that idea is that, obviously you understand that God has foreknowledge of who will be saved before, we even come into existence.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like if God knows that the Apostle Paul is going to be saved or that Peter is going to be saved, it seems that we can kind of say that they are going to persevere to the end. Like that is something that has already been written in history.
But that doesn't make God the cause of all of the events or the sole determinate cause of their salvation. So God creates a world where there's secondary causes, and those people can participate and synergize in the process of deification. So the fact that God has foreknowledge is not equivalent to the doctrine of the perseverance of the saints, which is that God infallibly ensures that the predetermined elect are saved. And this is all because Calvinism and the predestinarian view of even Augustine places soteriology before Christology. If you look at Paul's epistles, in Ephesians, for example, the letter is not written to the fixed number of the elect. The letter is written to a visible church in Ephesus who has apostolic succession. So that fact alone really undercuts this entire model and paradigm.
Do you think it necessarily matters whether or not, like, Christ has made it so that they'll persevere? Like, don't you think the fact that God would have foreknowledge of their actions that they do to earn salvation, that by default, it's almost like they are predestined to live in a certain way that'll lead them to salvation?
No, because God is not the direct cause of all events.
I guess I struggle with, does God have to be the direct cause of all events?
Well, if he made them that way so that they would become saved and persevere, then yes, he has to be. That's why Calvinism typically ends up saying that the divine decree is the real basis for salvation. In the divine decree doctrine, it would mean that God is the direct, immediate cause of all events, and there's not proximate and secondary causes.
Well, you would agree that God obviously made us the way that we are in general. So, like, how would you explain how people reach salvation then? Because, like, couldn't you just say, like, well, God made someone in a certain way where it's like they do enough repentance and they do the proper things to be saved anyway?
Again, it hinges on the doctrine of anthropology that we have, where there's a distinction between nature and person. So human nature is not determined. It has its own proper willing and energy that never goes away. Even after the fall, human nature retains its will and energy. And we know this from Christology because Christ assumes our nature and heals it. So at no point does divine grace supplant, destroy, or replace the human will and energy. So the paradigm of Christology is the same as the paradigm of soteriology.
So another thing, too, with that is I believe that you could come to the conclusion of perseverance of the saints or like perseverance of the believer without necessarily having to completely forego free will. I don't know if you agree with that.
I understand that all Calvinists affirm verbally free will, but they don't consistently confirm and affirm the idea that human beings are their own causal agents. So that's the problem here. And the way that we can nail that down really quick is to talk about Christology, because both Augustine and Calvin are inconsistent on their Christology. And I can ask you the same questions as well. I mean, do you think Jesus was predestined?
No, because he's always existed. So
no,
I don't even
no. Predestined to when he becomes incarnate. Is he a predestined man? That's a term that Augustine uses.
I would say no.
Why is he not a predestined man if you're a Calvinist or an Augustinian?
Well, I don't consider myself a Calvinist or an Augustinian, so I don't really know like what their response would be.
Okay, well, I thought you were arguing the Calvinist position, so I misunderstood. Again, so maybe you don't understand what secondary causes are. Do you know what that means?
So explain that to me.
Yeah. So primary cause, God, like, are you familiar with Islam at all?
A little bit.
Right. So Sunni Muslims, for example, like they have this idea that there's no created causal agents in the world. And the reason that you can't say that, they think, is because it would detract from God's sovereignty if there were other beings that could be causal agents. And so this becomes the term is called occasionalism. And this is the idea that at every second, every nanosecond, God is destroying and recreating the world. Now, some Calvinists also adopted this position, like Jonathan Edwards, because they thought it was more consistent with the idea of God's determining decree. So, if we say that there are secondary causes, that means that agents that God creates in the world have a real ability to be their own causal determinants. So God is not the direct determining cause of all those events. So if that's admitted, that would preclude what you're arguing about foreknowledge entailing perseverance of the saints.
I would agree with that. I think that you can reach something like an idea that someone will persevere to the end without
the fact that God knows it does not make God the cause of every one of those events.
I agree.
Okay, then foreknowledge doesn't entail perseverance.
But if he
why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing. I'm like breathing.
Okay.
If God knows that something is going to happen, then I'm not saying that he necessarily foreordained it, but just the knowledge that someone. Right. Yeah, I think you can come to that conclusion without Calvinism. Like, for example, I think, I forget what verse it is, but it's talking about the characteristics of...
Yeah, but again, so God foreknowing the events of Paul persevering to the end does not mean that God is the direct, immediate cause of every action in Paul's life.
I completely agree.
Okay, so maybe you're misunderstanding then what we mean by participating in grace, because there's a lot of people in the New Testament, for example, in Hebrews 6, who are said to be washed with baptism. They partake of the heavenly gift, and they fall away. Jesus talks about seeds that fall on stones, they spring up to new life, and they wither away and die. So those are people who really experience grace and do not persevere until the end.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say this, like, I think you can come to that conclusion from like a free will perspective. Like, when it's talking about faith, one of the things that it says is that it involves love, and love always perseveres. So like, I believe that if someone truly loves God, and it is the biblical definition of love, that love and faith in God will always persevere if it is truly love.
Well, I mean, this is just redefining terms to make, once saved, always saved be the case. I mean, the text...
For sure.
Okay, well, if that's the position, then you just admitted that you're wrong.
Well, for sure. I mean, I argue that perseverance of the saints can be derived from something other than like a very like 5-point Calvinism type view. Like, I think you could have that view and not be a Calvinist. Like, for example, like Molinists believe in that, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, like what does any of this have to do with like Christology or the arguments that, like, so if you're redefining truly loving God to just mean, I mean, at that point, then it's just, you're still not escaping the issue, because don't you think most of those people who fell away, for example, in the texts that are mentioned, don't you think if you'd asked them before they fell away, do you truly love God? They probably would have said yeah, and like, maybe they even believed it.
Right. And I would say my argument is they might have like loved God, but I don't think that they loved God enough. Like, you need to truly love someone. Like, for example, like if you're in a relationship with your wife and I say to you, like, you love your wife, but if I say like,
okay, so I'm not trying to be, I understand. I'm not trying to be rude, but if you're just redefining all the terms to fit your position, then what is the position?
Well, what terms would you say that I've redefined?
I mean, you just said that now what it means to persevere is to, quote, truly love God. So it sounds like just a way to...
Oh, yeah, let me explain that. I'm sorry if I wasn't super explicit there. So what I mean to say is, I believe you're justified by faith. And so I was describing the characteristics of what faith is, because faith leads to salvation. And involved in faith is more than just knowledge about God. You have to trust and believe and love God. And the definition of love is that love always perseveres. So if you attach that to what it means to be a true
again, so you're
believer,
redefining all of the terms to make your position work, because that's not what these terms mean in the New Testament or in patristic theology.
So
you have a presupposition about what perseverance of the saints means, and once saved, always saved. And any objection that I bring up, everything is redefined to make that view still work. And the point is that, where are you getting these ideas about what that truly means? It sounds like this is just your position.
So I think there's several verses in the Bible you could pull up that describe what faith is. I mean, wouldn't you agree faith has to
No. About the fact that when I bring up texts that talk about really apostatizing, you redefine that to mean that, yeah, and that just means that they didn't truly love God.
Well, how else could you explain it? Because how could they have been a true
believer? By what I
if they
said.
walked away?
How else what?
How could they have been a true believer if they walked away?
By everything that I've been arguing to you. It says that they tasted the heavenly gift. It says that new life sprang up in them and that withered away and died.
Right.
And you're saying that it doesn't mean that. It means that they never were really alive, is essentially what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying that you could receive gifts and not experience.
It doesn't say just receive gift. It says receive new life and they died. It says that they apostatized from the covenant. They tasted of the heavenly gift.
So I guess the point would be, if you tasted the heavenly gift, you have new life. Mm-hmm. The question is, can you give that up? Can you have new life?
Obviously, because that's what the passages are saying.
Right. So I guess I would struggle with the verses that says love always perseveres. Because then you run into roadblocks like that, or the fact that certain people,
it's not a roadblock, because if you truly love God, you won't fall away, meaning that you will continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, correct, as Paul says.
Correct.
Okay, none of that is once saved, always saved, or is the perseverance of the saints in Occasionalism. None of that is that.
Oh, yeah. And I think that you can believe in that idea without being haughty and saying, like, oh, I'm persevered, so therefore I don't have to live in fear and trembling.
Okay, but if you're admitting, oh, yeah, then that's not the position that you took a minute ago.
Well, I never said that I applied Augustine.
All right, we're moving on, so this is not going anywhere.